I don't think anyone would have said no to a date with her. I wouldn't say no to a date with her. Like, you know, who would say no
I would
to a
have
date
jumped
with Demi?
up in
Like,
glee.
come on.
Yeah, like, let's go. Yeah.
Let's go. Let's do it. Like, so the couples on the beach during weeks 2 and 3, we had a lot of them. We had Brendan and Natasha continuing to talk to each other, but then Demi was thrown in and there was some triangle shit going on, which we'll get into in a second. We also had Tammy and Aaron on the beach, which they seemed pretty secure. Serena C briefly made a play for Aaron, but didn't seem to pan out for her. We had Marissa and Connor, who are cute as hell, but then we had Riley getting thrown on the beach, throwing a wrench in those plans. So Riley and Marissa seem to be really hitting it off, which we love, and we'll see how that triangle pans out in the coming weeks.
I will say that one of the couples that I thought was really interesting, I think Joe and Serena, they're just going to continue to be a hot topic week after week. I think age and where they're both at in dating will continue to be a theme that will manifest itself a lot. Joe was very invested in Serena's date with Thomas. Do you remember when he was like, I hope you have a bad time? Like, it's so clear that he has baggage from what happened with Kendall and Leo in the past, that he can't help but like project a little bit of insecurity towards Serena. And Serena is very light and she has the right approach for it. She wants to date people. That's what the show's all about. She's really diving into that wholeheartedly. And I think Joe understands that, but he is also someone that has a more like traditional monogamous point of view of Serena. I think he like committed to the fact that he liked her and he's not really looking for any other people, whereas Serena likes him, but she's not as invested or as immediately like committed to the fact that she can see herself just dating him.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think that the two of them, I think they're going to find more differences than similarities perhaps as they continue to get to know each other and get to know their respective styles or approaches to dating and relationships. So it'll be interesting to see all that pan out, especially as we know that Kendall is going to be dropped into this mix in at least a couple of weeks. So
I can't wait. I'm dying
more
for
dramas
it.
to come.
I'm dying for it.
We also had Trey and Tahj continuing to talk to each other, although Riley was thrown on the beach as well this week, and that kind of stirred the pot a little bit with Trey and Tahj. Remains to be seen if Tahj goes on to pursue Riley.
Yeah.
You know, in the coming weeks. It seems like she was really, really into him and wanted to meet him. So we'll see if that ends up throwing a wrench in Trey's plans. Quickly, we just wanted to touch on the amazing conversation between Ivan and Jessenia. Those two, like,
so good.
Honestly, their vulnerability and their willingness to go in and talk about the hard stuff on, you know, BIP is like a very casual, like, fun entertainment dating show, and so to have them be willing to take this really important and serious conversation and have it on national television in the midst of an otherwise like sex pot show, it's really brave, and I had a lot of appreciation for both of them for their willingness to bring this conversation up.
It breaks away from typical date conversations of like, how do you feel about me? Are you attracted to me? Are you liking anyone else on the beach? I think this was something that showed, okay, this is a couple that has demonstrated that they can really talk about things that matter. And this could really empower them as a couple moving forward because they can have the language around these type of issues that do affect them. Like, it's real for the both of them, like him being Black and her being Latina.
Absolutely. And, you know, there's like an old school like realm of thinking in the kind of dating advice world, which is like, don't talk about politics or hard stuff on the first date. And honestly, I think that's bullshit because, you know, our politics, like our politics, our identity, those are so key to who we are. They affect every part of our lives, and it's so important in a relationship to feel like you can be seen, heard, validated, understood, acknowledged, and like you can talk about these parts of your life with a potential partner. And additionally, we know that people's politics represent their values, and incompatible values can often lead to relationships not working out. We saw that with Becca Crufen and
Garrett,
guy whose name I can't remember. Garrett. Sorry,
Garrett,
Victoria P there.
What's his name? It's not even important, his name.
No, whatever.
They quickly became one of my favorite couples. Because not only do they have the physical attraction, it's very clear that there's a lot of chemistry at play, but it signals the depth of their potential relationship to come.
Totally.
For them to have these conversations like you were saying, it's just so nice to be able to talk about the real things off the bat. I call those conversations like if you don't have it now, the shoe will drop in 6 months. Like when you do realize that there are some incompatibilities that you can't overcome because it's so integral to your sense of self and your identity and the way that all intersects. So for them to just kind of get that off on one of their first dates, for them to realize that the values aligned, I think they're a couple to watch.
I think it's time for us to talk about Demi.
It's time to talk about Demi. And I had my opinions about Demi. I spoke to you a little bit about it before. I felt like Demi coming on the beach. I mean, one, just a very smart producer choice. Demi, even her intro of her stirring the pot, she knows how to bring drama. She is very, very good at TV. She really understands how to present herself in a specific light. I think that Demi, the way that she pursued Brandon, I mean, of course, when he was hearing about how much she liked him, he looked so happy. Brandon was smiling and he was just in total glee that she was making him feel so attractive, that she was making him feel wanted, the way that she was touching him, the way that she just kept saying how sexy he was. I think that anyone would feel attracted to someone like that, but it felt almost a little bit gimmicky, like a playbook even.
The truth of it is, I mean, when they went on the date, I was immediately their personalities are so different. They're not going to connect. That, I think anyone can see that from, a bird's eye view. It's just so easy to see that just, at a glance that they are not compatible. And so I bet, to your point, Brendan looked very, smitten and mesmerized when she came in. She was she was so hot. She came in looking smoking. I don't think anyone would have said no to a date with her. I wouldn't say no to a date with her. Who
I would have jumped up in glee.
Come on,
let's go. Yeah,
let's go. Let's do it. Of course.
Let's ride some jet skis.
Yeah, absolutely. No one's gonna say no to a date with Demi, but I think to your point, as soon as Brendan kind of got to know her, he was just kind of we're not compatible. And, he was very quickly I'm not going to put my eggs in this basket. And so, I don't necessarily think that he did anything wrong there, too. I think she was, really upset that he communicated his true intentions. But what are you going to do other than communicate your true intentions? He told her how it was. He wasn't that into her after the date. He wanted to keep seeing people. And, we gotta applaud the transparency. We gotta applaud the honesty, being direct with people, telling them immediately if you're not actually into them. It's better than leading them on. So I applaud Brendan for being as honest as he was.
So I think that leads to a really interesting segue that was happening on the beach. There was a lot of gossip about how Brandon and Pieper had been dating each other before they went to Bachelor in Paradise. And that created a lot of tension, I think, for Natasha. I think it created tension for Demi, of them feeling maybe he wasn't available. But this is really common in contemporary dating culture now. There's a lot of casual dating. There's a lot of no labels. When do you have the exclusive conversation of someone and really let someone in to what you're really looking for, the other people that you're seeing, and when you're just going to see them one-on-one if their intention is to get into a monogamous relationship?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a question that a lot of people have, when do we define the relationship? When should we put a label on it? And I'm definitely not someone who really believes in no label relationships, because the truth is, like, I think people say that because they don't want it. They say they don't want labels, usually because they're trying to say they don't want exclusivity. But you can just say, like, hey, we're casually dating. That's a label. Saying that we're casually dating non-exclusively, that's a label, and it still allows you to have the same freedom while also being transparent with people about what you're doing, right? So it's okay to put words to what you're doing, and in fact, I think it's beneficial to put words to what you're doing, so that way there's no miscommunication, and that way there's no like misunderstandings, right? Like, you want to make sure that someone that you're casually dating also thinks that you're casually dating, because that's what makes it fun. Otherwise you're being a manipulative bitch, right? Yeah. like, you know, you have, like, right? If I'm casually dating someone, I want them to also think that we're casually dating. Like, I don't want them to think that we're in a serious relationship, or I don't want them to think that we're exclusive if I don't think we're exclusive. So there's really no reason not to just say that, put words on it, so that way both of you are on the same page, and then both of you can just enjoy your lovely casual relationship. And there's nothing wrong with enjoying a lovely casual relationship. Now, the Pieper thing is interesting, and I'm curious to hear your thoughts, Julie. It's interesting because, you know, obviously this is like a very common theme on Bachelor in Paradise. Like, gasp, somebody had a boyfriend back home. Gasp, someone was actually dating someone back home. And, you know, it comes up so often in this franchise that it becomes like, as soon as someone says something like that, they're immediately like, oh my god, this person came on for the wrong reasons. Oh my gosh, this person came on and, like, is just trying to fuck around. Like, but I think that is it can be a pretty flat or one-dimensional, like, black or white reading of what dating is actually like in real life. To your point, like, in contemporary dating, it is so common for people to date multiple people at the same time and figure out like who they're vibing with. And, you know, it is so common for people to want to casually and non-exclusively date for a little bit before they decide, oh yeah, there's really something here, let's do this exclusively. And, you know, of course, if he was going to enter into a serious relationship with anybody on the beach, he would have to talk about this. But he went on one date with Demi. Hard to tell what's going on with him and Natasha. Maybe it would have been appropriate for him to share with Natasha that he's talking to somebody else outside on the beach, but it's hard to tell how serious their relationship has gotten thus far. At least with Demi, it was like one date, so it didn't seem necessary for him to tell her, you know, anything really. Those are my thoughts. What do you think?
I think that, I mean, this is another thing where I have to just break the fourth wall. I think there's a lot of, like, 2021 dating is kind of clashing against the framework of the show, because, like, the end of the show, you could walk away with an engagement. So a lot of people that do come on the show have different motivations for being on the show. Like Serena was saying, like, I'm looking to get engaged, and she, like, waved her hand. That could be her intention. It could not be her intention. But it makes it harder to date on the beach, because Brandon, and rightfully so, he is allowed to date. He's allowed to have outside connections. He's allowed to have a potential you know, for Pieper to come in, but then that would be problematic for Natasha if she does invest her time and energy into Brandon. Then Pieper comes and then she goes home the following week because she's not dating around. So it's really just like, it introduces this like like this gaminess to it, like a sense of strategy to it. It introduces like, how much do people casually date? How much do people really invest in their coupling? Because you never know who's around the corner. So I do see why Natasha and Demi were upset. I don't think they had a right to be as upset as they were, or to frame him in a negative way, because he's not doing anything wrong. But it does make Brandon someone that people should be a little bit wary about getting invested in, because if she does come down to the beach, obviously he is going to pursue that connection, and the person that he's dating will have to take a back seat. So that does kind of like clash a little bit of the show. I think that he didn't really owe them both an explanation about who he was seeing and what he was doing. But I don't think he was being totally honest with Natasha when he was like, I have the strongest connection with you. I have not, like, I don't feel that way about Pieper. I just don't think that was true. I think that was him just like, how do I get out of this pickle? You're right in front of me. I have to just like, I obviously want you to feel better. I'm going to do whatever I can do to soothe your concerns. But he has a little bit more history with Pieper. And I feel like no matter what, that's just something that has to be like given proper credit to. Like, I just think that's going to be a hiccup if she does come on the beach.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's actually, I think it's hard to say if his connection with Pieper, how strong his connection with Pieper is or isn't. I mean, there are guys that I've dated for like a year casually, but then when I met my current partner, I'd been dating another guy casually for a year, but I immediately knew that my current partner, I was like, oh, there's a real connection here, even though we've known each other for 3 weeks. Like, I obviously like you more than the like guy I've been boning for a year, because I was just a guy I was boning for a year. Like, and so I think it's hard to say that just because he's known Pieper longer, that means that he's more committed to her or more into her. Like, I don't think that is necessarily true. It could be true, but we don't really know. It's like, you know, he hasn't actually said very much about what his relationship to Pieper is or how close they are. I think traveling to see each other, I mean, there's plenty of people who will travel to see just like a really solid fuck. And like, I think that's just the truth. Like, I mean, if I was single, I would travel to go see my like very solid fuck in, I don't know, wherever, Canada or something. Like, yeah, of course, it sounds fun. It sounds like
long
a good weekend trip. Like, come on, that sounds great. So I don't necessarily think that it's known that Brendan has a stronger connection to Pieper than he does with Natasha. It's possible, and I mean, we know Pieper, she's bae as fuck, so like,
she's so bae. But I just feel like how I see it is that Natasha and him, I think they have a lot of intellectual, there's like a lot of flirtiness, there's like intellectual stimulation with each other. I don't see like that
I agree with.
I don't see that vibe. So I felt like when he was talking to Natasha, it was him kind of going through the motions of what you say when you want to comfort someone. I don't think that his connection to Pieper, like, who knows, like, his connection of Natasha could totally supersede it. But I just don't see where he was pulling all of that, like, commitment from. Because I just didn't see it with him and Natasha at all. I think another really big theme about the episode was the triad, the trifecta that was Victoria P, that was Kelsey, that was Tammy. Like, the whole conversation they had about her possibly having a boyfriend back home, and then how Victoria P approached that conversation was really problematic to see on TV. I really didn't like to see how she was weaponizing therapy speak as a way to make herself seem like she was very mature, she was emotionally intelligent, when it was very clear that as soon as she got into a confrontation, she wasn't able to like really speak honestly about what was really going on for her. She kept wanting to say like, I need to walk away from this, I need to take a breather, you need to calm down, you're raising your voice, but none of them were doing anything that would have caused her to have that reaction. She like immediately became really defensive that they weren't automatically like, I'm so sorry, like that wasn't our place. What did you think about it?
Yeah, I agree. I think that Victoria P's like handling of that conflict was just manipulative, frankly. She was using therapy like language and the kind of things she was kind of like saying the kind of things that you just see on Instagram therapists like Instagram posts. It felt like she was like just like regurgitating lines that she's seen on social media or on TikTok or whatever. She's like regurgitating like terminology, healthy boundaries, and I need to take a breather. She was regurgitating this language without actually fully understanding what it means. And I think, Julia, you had said this at another point, but without fully embodying those values and those principles. Like, it felt like she was just talking the talk without actually meaning anything.
I really didn't like how she approached Tammy and Kelsey, and they were like, hey, look, like, he's our friend, and we have to communicate that, you know, you were seeing someone right before you came on the beach, and you're still seeing him. And she was like, I have to get up because this is a healthy boundary for me. I need to walk out of that conversation. That's not what boundaries are. that's not how you state a boundary. That's not how you exit a conversation like that. She really didn't give them any chance to like hold space and have a constructive conversation about like where they were coming from and what her intentions were of James. She kind of immediately was like, I feel like I need to get out of this, which is an act of, it's defensiveness. Like, she wasn't able to like really be in the room anymore. She was immediately just thinking about her pride and her image and how she was coming across, and she really was looking to preserve that at a cost.
Another person who also we saw have this kind of manipulative conflict style was Thomas, right? So manipulation, when we talk about manipulation, what we're talking about is using your actions, your words, your behavior to make another person act, behave, say a certain thing, right? You want someone else to do something, so you do something that will make them behave in that way. And so,
yeah,
you know, Thomas coming over to the guys to apologize to them, that, you know, it was very clear that he would not have made that apology if Serena P hadn't dumped him, right? It's very clear that he made that apology because he was like, oh, none of these girls are going to want to date me, so I need to make the guys stop bad-mouthing me. How can I make the guys stop bad-mouthing me? Oh, okay, what I'll do is I'll apologize for all the things I did, and then maybe they'll stop bad-mouthing me and I'll get what I want, which is for girls to date me. That's manipulative. That's the definition of manipulation, because you are doing something not because you mean it and not because it's authentic, but you're doing it because you want to get something out of these other people. And what Thomas wanted from Trey and the guys, he wanted them to stop bad-mouthing him. He wanted them to endorse him so he could date girls. That kind of apology is, you know, it's not earnest. It's the definition of manipulative. And I feel for Trey because he really bought into it. I'm glad that he saw through it immediately after and was able to, you know, pull himself from that situation. But, you know, I really feel for him because, you know, he gave somebody the benefit of the doubt. He was willing to exercise forgiveness, which is not easy. I had a lot of appreciation for Trey's ability to receive that apology and decide, I'm going to change my mind about someone. That is really hard to do. It is really hard to have someone directionally show you that they're a shit person and then decide, I'm going to give this person a second chance. That's not an easy thing to do, and he was willing to do it, and it kind of didn't pan out, right? It kind of bit him in the ass, which, you know, that really sucks, and I feel for him. But yeah, I mean, Thomas's behavior, I think, was pretty hard to watch, and, you know, it really sucks to see these girls on the beach kind of valorizing him. It kind of sucks to see these girls on the beach being like, he's a bad boy, but we love bad boys. You know, that kind of language is just so unhelpful. That kind of language really, you know, it perpetuates a toxic masculine standard that in the end tends to hurt women, right? You know, and then, like, you know, I do this all the time. I'm like, men ain't shit. Men fucking suck. Men are, you know, terrible. We hear, you know, people say, women will say this all the time, but then on the same breath, they'll be like, oh, but all girls love bad boys. It's like, when you perpetuate these standards, this is why men think they can get away with this kind of behavior. It's why men like Thomas will continue to be men like Thomas, because, you know, we validate that behavior. And if we stop validating that behavior, and kudos to Trey and the boys for like not fucking putting up with it. Trey and the boys were like, no, we're not going to deal with this. We're not going to hold you accountable. We're not going to just like pretend like it's no big deal. Like, kudos to them for doing that. And that's kind of what's necessary. Otherwise, people are not going to change their behavior, and we're going to end up having like a bunch of bad boys who just continue to treat women like shit, you know?
I agree.
Yeah, those are my thoughts on the Thomas situation.
I wanted to also speak a little bit too about like something that we were talking about, because we like text during the episode and stuff, but like, how do you gauge red flags when it comes up? Because that was a really big conversation between him and Serena, and then they were like cutting back to the beach when the men were kind of telling why they perceived Thomas to be someone that was not totally trustworthy. Like, how do you listen to what people are saying and then what your gut might be saying, but when there's smoke there's fire, so there's like a lot to infer. What's your take on it?
Yeah, it's a really interesting question. I think that, red flags are so important to pay attention to, especially at the beginning of a relationship, because to your point, at the beginning of a relationship, there's so much like affection, like people are telling you all kinds of things that you want to hear. People are kind of being like romantic. There's this excitement of connecting with a new person. Ooh, somebody likes me. This is so exciting. Like all of those feelings are, getting activated at the start of getting to know someone. And so those red flags are, it's easy to want to ignore them because you're so happy. Like the feeling of someone liking you feels so good that you kind of don't want to see the red flags.
You're like in a bubble, I feel like.
Yeah,
you just don't want to burst the bubble. Yeah,
exactly. You would just prefer to ignore them so you can continue to enjoy the feeling of this like early love as long as you can, right? Yeah. That's how a lot of people tend to approach relationships. And of course, we know what the end result is. It tends to be like that red flag ends up being a huge fucking problem, and then things blow up, and then people look back and say like, how did I not know, right? And so like, it's a bit of a, I think it requires a little bit of balance. I think in the case of Thomas and Serena P, the truth is that Serena P was hearing from all of these guys. All of these guys were saying like, fuck Thomas. Thomas is like this shit person. And, obviously if you hear all of your friends really hate this, like a guy, you should pay attention to that. That's something to observe. But in this case, I would say it's not like Serena P knows all of those guys. It's not like she's like BFFs with all of those guys on the beach. It's not like she knows how much her values align with the values of all of these guys on the beach. So I do think that this is different from having like your real friends telling you like, no, this guy sucks. Like that is different because your real friends, you can trust them, you're right. What they're, that's something that I think you should pay attention to. But we know, for example, that mob mentality can be a lot. Like we think of, I think of in Matt James' season, everybody hated Katie, right? Everybody really, like all those girls really hated Katie. They were all like, Katie's the one causing the drama. When in reality, we know that Katie was the one calling out bullying and all those other girls were the ones doing the bullying. And so we know that like, just because there's a big group of people who believe something doesn't mean that the group of people is right. And so, Serena P was in an interesting situation. It's like, to what extent should she believe the guys on the beach versus believing what Thomas is saying? It seems to me like Serena took the right approach, which was let me go on the date with the guy and evaluate and not kind of fall for the things that he's saying. And she made her determination. It sounds like her decision was based on the idea that she didn't like the way he was talking about Trey. She kind of saw what his behavior was like for herself, in addition to just the drama surrounding him. It sounds like she made her own assessment. She kind of took the feedback, took the information from her like group of guys, and then also took information from her own observations and used the mesh of that to make a decision. And somewhere in that, I think that kind of balance might be generally the right approach, right? I think that might generally be what a person needs to do in any given situation, right? Take the feedback that you're getting, take the observations that you are seeing with your own two eyes, and make a balanced judgment based on that.
That's an excellent assessment. And I think when you're dating, when something just feels a little bit too much, like they're really keyed into you too much, or you don't feel like they're totally being authentic, you just have to pay attention, because when you're dating someone, they're constantly telling you who they are, and you have to listen to what people think, but you need to make your own assessment.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, people want to have fun, and it's okay. Like Serena was like, I want to make out with this guy. I'm going to go on this date, make out with this guy. Like, go enjoy, like, live your best life, make out with the cute guy. Like, cool. And she was able to lead into that and enjoy that while also keeping her head about her. She was able to keep her head above water. She was able to like enjoy making out with this guy and enjoy the fun of being on a date with him without like losing her like rational part of her brain, which was listening to him as he was showing her who he was with his actions. And so she was able to do both, lean into the fun of the early stage of getting to know someone while also being discerning and paying attention to red flags. And it led her to ultimately making what seems to be the right decision, which was to get the fuck out of there.
And run back to Joe, which Joe was very thankful for. Mopey, amazing Joe.
Somebody to help Joe, please.
He looks weary. I was like, yo, you look tired. Like, he was
need
trying
someone to
take
go,
a nap.
like, put him under a blanket and snug with him. I will go snug with him. Like, that's what he needs. Just
someone take care of him. Bring him fruits, get him some water, make sure he's hydrated. Like, I think that, yeah, so that's it from us. We're here to find love. It was a lot of fun just dissecting and analyzing this episode. We hope you had a lot of fun too. If you have anything you want to say, just keep the conversation going with a comment down below. Like, subscribe, and we'll see you soon. Bye. See you next week.